Hey guys, it's Allie. Welcome back to Infertile AF, the podcast. This is episode 15 called Melissa. So Melissa is a friend of mine from high school who reached out to me when I announced that I was doing a podcast and said that she had a roller coaster of a story to tell. So she talks a lot about endometriosis, which we haven't really gotten into much on the podcast yet. So I'm really glad we covered a lot of that topic and her experiences with that and how she and her husband tried for years and years to have their baby. So without further ado, this is Melissa's infertility story. Hi, Melissa.
Hi, Allie. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for talking to me today. Just to let the listeners know, we went to high school together.
We did.
And I think you were at the last reunion, right?
I was. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we saw each other there.
We saw each other then, yeah. And I just saw some high school friends and I said I was doing this and they're like, oh my gosh, how do you know her? And I'm like, oh, we did this sport together. Very intense sport. It's called cheerleading.
Yes, it was. Do you remember when we had the debate in high school about whether cheerleading was technically a sport or not? And we all rallied together and were like, it is a sport.
Did we win? Like, I think we won.
Do you always want to have kids?
I did. I mean, I have siblings and my mom is a fantastic mom. And my dad's a fantastic dad too, but, since we're talking about mothers. So I just always assumed I would, and my mom had me when she was 30. So that sort of was when I thought I would want to have kids-ish, and it's so interesting when you plan your life out when you're a teenager and you think it's going to go exactly how you plan,
Mm-hmm.
And I always imagined that I would have one or two, but in my head, I always thought I would have a boy and a girl.
Okay. And then fast forwarding quite a bit, how did you and your husband meet?
We met teaching a workshop. I'm a music theater professor, acting professor. So we were doing, like a music theater workshop for teens over one summer. So we joke a lot and say we met at summer camp. But
you met at band camp.
Exactly.
Theater camp. That's so cool.
Yeah. So that was that. And then it was a really quick, I think we were 29. So it was a pretty whirlwind courtship and like really, really, really romantic. And we got married pretty quickly.
Okay. And did you guys talk about having kids before you got married?
Absolutely. Because I had had endometriosis and I was having lots of pain and all the stuff that goes with endometriosis. And so I think by 25, my periods were so bad that I'd be in pain for probably a week and a half to 2 weeks out of the month, with lots of weird side effects. And, it was awful. So I started seeing, getting like, do I have fibroids? Like all those sort of things, ultrasounds. Mm-hmm. And then it was discovered that, this is very medical. Do you want me to go down this road? I mean,
I want all the details.
Okay. Your listeners should not eat maybe at this moment.
Okay, everyone put your food down if you're eating.
Exactly, because I was like, you won't want to. So they discovered that I had endometriosis that was growing outside of my uterus. And it was starting to fuse my organs together and form sort of just like tissue masses in the very inopportune places. And so one of them was forming a mass that was invading my colon, or in other words, like blocking it. And so that would cause eventually an obstruction that would rupture a whole bunch of stuff and kill me. So we have to go in, we have to cut that out, and, it'll be major surgery, but we have to take out part of your intestines and then sew.
Oh my gosh. Did they tell you that? Like this could be fatal?
Well, no, they were like, we just, we're going to have to do this, but it's fine. And, you'll be in the hospital for 10 days and, we're sorry you're 26, but we'll take care of this and then you'll be all better. That was sort of the gist of this.
Okay.
So it was never ever like you'll have problems with fertility at that point. It was just, we have to fix this problem. So I did that surgery. And then the place where they sewed the intestines back together, called the anastomosis, unfortunately that leaked. And so intestine stuff started flowing all over my body. And I'm just going here because this is what caused all the problems. Tore a hole between my vaginal and rectal wall.
Whoa.
And then that made me go septic. So then that was the you might die part.
Oh my gosh.
And I had a huge emergency surgery, and then I had to move up to the Mayo Clinic. I'm fast forwarding this, and live there for a couple months and have several surgeries after that.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea about any of this.
It was crazy.
Sorry.
It was all from like age 25 to 28.
Oh no.
Was all of this. But the Mayo Clinic is a miracle and fixed everything. But we came out of that and they said your window for having kids is probably shorter than the normal woman's because of the degree to which your endometriosis was prevalent. It might come back. And if it comes back, they're like, you will not be able to have a kid through what you're having. And they also said scar tissue will probably continue to form, causing problems. So they said the sooner you can start, the better.
Okay.
And so my husband and I were like, well, then we're getting married really fast and we're going to start trying immediately.
Okay.
And so we did. And I jumped right into the beginning stuff, like where you get the books and you're doing your temperature. I mean, that was probably pretty much about a month after we got married. We started that sort of stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you're getting pretty technical about it right away. Like this is how we're going to have to do it. And you have to track everything. And
yeah.
Okay.
But, no help yet.
Yeah.
Just this try for 6 months of just that,
Okay. Can we back up a little bit and just talk about endometriosis a little bit too? Because I know that's a very common thing when it comes to people having infertility issues. When did you realize, were you diagnosed with that in high school, or when did you realize that you had that?
I didn't realize that I had that. I had, it's so funny, you have the weirdest memories, and I have a terrible memory because I've had so many surgeries that they said the anesthesia is making me forget a lot of stuff, which is, we joke about it because I'm like, who? What? I don't remember that person at all. I mean, it's terrible. But I started having those periods in high school where I'd have to miss school.
Oh gosh. Okay.
The weirdest memory, because we were supposed to go on a spring break tour with one of with choir in high school. And I remember the day I was supposed to get on the plane having one of these episodes and thinking, I don't know if I could get on this plane to another country.
Yeah.
And I remember that a girl was like, I have the same thing. And I have this prescription. And she gave, this is the things you do in high school. So she gave me something. I don't know what it was. And I was like, great, took it. Do not remember that flight at all, but woke up fine.
Okay. And it helped.
It helped. So I should have actually figured out what it was. But thanks, Carmen. If you're listening.
Carmen, if you're listening, email me or email Melissa and let her know what that was.
Right. You tell me what that was, because that was some good stuff.
It's like fentanyl or something.
Exactly. And just pop it in. So that, it was all the way from there. But, saying I have bad periods in the 90s wasn't really listened to. Doctors were kind of like, yeah, okay. Well,
yeah, I think that's a common thing too, where they're just like, oh, get over it, honey. It's just a little blood. People don't take it super seriously.
Right. You get the have you tried Aleve? And you're like, yeah. I've actually had 19 Aleve today. And it's not helping. I'm just actually now saw a commercial where the woman's trying to tell her doctor about endometriosis and trying to be casual about it. And they're like, you should take this. And now they have prescription drugs that you take every day if you have this disease. I don't know what they are because I don't have it anymore. But I was noticing that and going, wow, the world's so different because now they're taking this seriously.
Right. Well, that's a good thing.
Which it is. So, but it can, ladies, if you have it, I hear you, and it is no joke.
Yeah, it can be super serious.
Yeah.
So you guys started trying soon after marriage. So that's sexy, right? When you're
I know. My husband is such a gem. It's so funny because we joke a lot. He's like, you fooled me. He calls me his little lemon, like when you get a lemon car. Car
oh, that's adorable.
I know, because we met literally, I mean, if I'm sharing it all with you ladies, during all of this process, like with the Mayo Clinic and surgeries, I had a colostomy bag for 2 years.
Oh God.
Yeah, it was a fun mid-20s, let me tell you. And so I had just gotten that removed. Oh gosh, I think in December, and then I met him in July.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was just, the timing was great because that's not extremely sexy.
Right. My grandfather had a colostomy bag towards the end of his life, and he called it his Gucci bag.
See, you got to make it work.
I always thought that was so cool.
Yeah, I don't. Luckily, I don't have my Gucci bag anymore. So I lucked out with that. But yeah, so he knew about all of that, but he hadn't seen me. He just missed that whole 3-year window where I was like in hospitals most of the time.
Okay.
And he caught me like when I was like back, and then we were out drinking, and he lived in New York. So we were like flying back and forth long distance to see each other, and, doing all the stuff that's like, I'm so young and we're so fun. It's like we're like, okay, we want kids. We might not want them quite yet, but we want them. So let's do this,
Yeah, you knew that you had a small window. So you kind of had to like accelerate the process, right?
Exactly. And I think we both were kind of like, oh, okay. I mean, we eye on the prize, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
But so, yes. So we started trying just with like taking your body temperature in the morning and, knowing when you're ovulating and all of that stuff. I would say almost immediately. And we did that for 6 months. Then the doctors were like, yeah, we know, we know your timeline. So here's Clomid, which I don't know if you know anything about that drug, but it's the devil. And I think it makes you make more eggs. I know that the IVF journey is really taxing and really can make you crazy for for like hormonal reasons and also just for emotional reasons. My husband often jokes and remarks that he's like, all the IVF was fine. He's like, just never Clomid again. And we joke now, but I remember it and I feel so badly that I woke up in the middle of the night, woke him up, started screaming at him that I was mad about somebody he dated years before. I mean, that I've never met. I mean, what? Was
he like, okay, lady?
Yeah, I mean,
back to sleep.
We were in the beginnings of this, so he just probably was like, I married a crazy woman and I didn't know.
There's my lemon.
Yeah, exactly. So the Clomid was not a pretty sight, but we did that. I can't remember. I think we did that for 6 months too, and then no luck with that either.
Okay.
And so then, at that point, our gynecologist referred us to a specialist, and they're like, you should go see a fertility specialist. So then we went to see, the doctors, and they reviewed my whole case, and they said, you should skip IUI. It's not going to work for you. So they're like, skip right to IVF. Yay. So we started that. And, if, as you know, a literal pharmacy of drugs gets mailed to your house, or that's at least how I got mine. And then you spread them all out in your bathroom, and it's just so many needles. It's crazy.
I know, it's kind of comical. You're like, what?
Yes.
For one person?
And you're like, thank God. And I think everybody probably handles this differently, but, Matt and I really did this whole thing together where he was giving me all of the shots. And then I just was not able to give those suckers to myself. I think I'm a weakling. I just couldn't make myself do it.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, I mean, it's like, I know I'm sure it doesn't hurt any more or less when I would do it myself, but I just was like 1, 2, 3. Okay, try it again. And I could never. So,
yeah.
So he did it for me unless he was out of town. And luckily we lived next door to an ER doctor. So I would run over to his house when Matt was out of town and get the shots. He would do them for me.
Oh, that's nice.
I know. I'm such a baby. I mean, they're not that.
No,
big.
You're not. But it's hard to give yourself injections.
It is. So we did that. So we started IVF, and the first cycle, it worked. And the end of the podcast is now. No, I'm just kidding.
And goodbye.
And bye. Thanks a lot. We see you later. It worked, and we were so excited. And then you have to go in for monitoring every other day right after that, and get your blood and your ultrasounds. And I think my blood numbers of the what is it? HCG, the whatever the
Yes, the
is that what it
pregnancy
is?
hormone, basically.
That's marking, that it should be spiking as as whatever is happening.
Right. They want the number to be constantly increasing.
Right. And mine was increasing, but not to the degree that they wanted to see it increasing.
Okay.
So that marked a problem. And they were thinking that the pregnancy probably wasn't viable, but it wasn't miscarrying on its own. And then, like I said, the numbers kept increasing, but they were supposed they said they wanted them to double, and they weren't. And so that was pretty devastating. And so they said you have to have a shot of, I think it's methotrexate or something, some shot that would make you basically have a miscarriage.
Oof.
I had to go in and get that, which, that obviously wasn't a great day.
No, that's devastating.
It really was. It was really tough. And then the shot didn't work. And, because you're supposed to take the shot, and then after that you'll start cramping and bleeding and, have a miscarriage. Well, it didn't work.
Ooh.
So then they're like, well, okay, come back and get a second shot. And I did. So again, I'm like, thanks a lot for this. And then it didn't work.
Were they telling you why it wasn't working, or did they
couldn't figure it out? And my numbers kept increasing, but then they dramatically slowed. Then I had to go, my doctor was out of town, and I had gone back to teach at that workshop with my husband that we had met at the previous, 2 years prior. Mm-hmm. So I was at a remote location. Just like an hour away. So I went to one of their sister offices and saw a different doctor to try to figure out what was going on. But he wasn't familiar with my case. So, you get in the room, and the tech, you lie down and you get your ultrasound, and you're laying there, and what's up on the screen. So he comes in. I guess he hadn't read my file. Awesome guy. And he goes, "Hey, twins, congrats."
Oh my gosh.
And we had no idea that we were supposed to be carrying twins.
Oh.
And that's why the shot wasn't working, because there were two in there.
Oh.
And then we went down the road of, well, was one of them viable? And we just shot it up with death drugs.
Oh.
It was rough.
Yeah.
Rough. And so then I had to have a DNC to get rid of that, because now it's been shot. Like the two little things have been shot to death with, poison. And that was really psychologically damaging. And I that was rough. I'm not going to try to laugh through that or say it's all fine now, because it still really bothers me.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Oh.
It's okay. It happens. And I did have, my OBGYN was wonderful and sent the tissue out to get tested. Mm-hmm. And at least one came back. We found out that one was a boy and had severe chromosomal problems. Mm-hmm. So I don't know what the other one was. Mm-hmm. We just try to tell ourselves that something must have been wrong there too, and we just try to move on.
Right. Yeah. What else can you do?
Right. So then, it was, well, let's try again. And then we started going down a road of them not working, then, my eggs just not growing. And so I remember at one time we were up to, I was able to get 6 sort of viable embryos, but with 6 or 9 cells. Terrible numbers. And at one point they put all 6 in.
Oh, wow.
Cycle, and none of them took.
Oh my gosh.
It was,
your body is going through so much up until this point. So you had done several rounds of IVF at this point.
Yeah. So I had that awful first one, had the DNC, and then I had 3 more where all these things, where we were trying all these things and they weren't working. And I was under insurance, but as you probably know, insurance is amazing, and I'm certainly so thankful for it. But the copays are still psychotic. Mm-hmm. For what it doesn't cover with, but this drug isn't covered, you need it, that sort of stuff. So, hemorrhaging money.
I know we actually didn't have any of ours covered by insurance. It was 100% out of pocket.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But I was lucky. I only did 1 round of IVF. So we got lucky in that regard.
But still, that's just that. Just that is
right. And I should give a shout out. My parents and Vince's parents both gave us money towards the cause. So Thank you both to all of them. That was wonderful.
Yeah. Parents save the day, man.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Our insurance covered, 80% of 4 cycles. So we did them and they didn't work. And then we didn't quite know what to do. And I was like, should I say this on the podcast? But it wasn't my fault. So where I work changed over insurance companies, and then like the whole corporation changed. So I got a new insurance plan, and that plan gave me 4 more cycles.
Oh, wow. Good for you.
I know. It was like this, my, IVF doctors were like, oh, you have just gotten hitting the mother load of luck.
That's amazing. Okay, good. So finally some good news.
Right. And it was a little bit like, oh, this is a lot of drugs that I'm pumping into me. I mean, and you're going down in the morning in rush hour early. So I would say it would take me 50 minutes to get down there. And then you're down there for 45 minutes and then you've got to come back up and go to work. And I was doing this, when you're in cycle, it's every other morning to every morning. So, I mean, this had become now part of my life for years where I was now also doing this. So pumping yourself full of shots, getting super disappointed, hemorrhaging money, and getting no sleep. So
getting up at the crack of dawn you're like for naught,
to get poked with a needle again for blood,
Right. And how are you and Matt doing? Were you guys okay?
I have to tell you, he was amazing. Get every shot giving me, being part of it. And he bought me these, I don't know if he'd want me to tell you this, but it's so cute. So I'm going to tell you. He bought these 2 little Care Bear figurines, and one was, I think, Sunshine Bear or Cheer Bear, and one was the little grumpy Blue Bear. And I would just get to put one out on the table. So when he would come home, he would know how I was doing.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And if it was the Blue Bear I'd put out, he would know that I was having a bad hormonal day, and I would just be more gentle, and you know what I mean?
Oh, that's so sweet.
It was super amazing, and then he would just immediately be like, do you want to order food? I mean, and we actually still use that. I mean, I don't have the bears, but I will say I'm blue bearing today, so that now it's become part of our little shorthand vocab.
Yes.
So that's great.
I love that.
So we started 4 more cycles. I'm like, well, let's do this. I'm determined. And we did 4 and 5. And then we froze some embryos and did just a couple of frozen transfers, and, was hoping that would work. Maybe if my body wasn't going through all of the harsh IVF part, maybe it would take more. Everybody was on this crusade to try to help me. It was great. I got a week off of work once, so I could just be on bed rest to see if it would take. I mean, we tried everything. And nothing would work. And so after, I think it was after the 6th cycle, and plus we had 3, frozen just transfers out of cycle. So I feel like I'd done that 9 times, but 6 actual IVFs. Our doctor called us in for a meeting. And usually those meetings are, where we're going to tweak and we think we're going to try this hormone instead. And, those kind of meetings, science cocktail meetings before you start. And she sat us down and she said, look, I think your eggs, are just not, she goes, because of all you went through and because of all the endometriosis that racked your body, I think your eggs are not going to do the trick. And so she said, I mean, we hadn't even talked about any of this. And she said, we have an egg donor bank. This is a relatively new process. A donor has just entered our bank that is like you. And that's so rare. So obviously your audience can't see me, but I'm biracial. My dad is Black. My mom is white. And I'm 5'2" and, whatever. Right. And she said, a person who's your height, your weight, biracial with the same 50-50 mix, and is a music major, because we get to know things about the donor. But they're has just entered the bank. And she's like, I think you should do this right now. And I think you should get her, because she will, there were egg donors, but to have women of color egg donors was rare. Wow. And then to have one that matched me. So, I mean, she looked like me. I mean, everything was lined up.
What a great doctor to take that into consideration. She really must have been invested in your story and wanting to help you, which is wonderful.
It really was wonderful. I mean, she was really great. I owe a lot to her.
What did it feel like to hear that your eggs weren't going to do the trick?
Not good at all. Not good at all. And that was hard. And they make you go see a psychiatrist or a psychologist on their staff, sort of talk through this, because it is a loss of some sort. And so we did, but I, was like, well, let's do this. And I talked to it was interesting. I talked to my parents because we were going to need help. So shout out to my Matt's parents and my parents, because donor egg is not cheap. And we had I think I had added up everything, all of my copays. And so even being covered, I think I was still $71,000 in copays that I had
Wow.
up to that point. And, now I was going to enter this new adventure. So they both gave us money for that donor egg procedure, which was great.
Wonderful.
And we, it was a lot. And it was like, well, will I tell anybody? And what are we going to do about this? But everybody had been with me on this journey, and knowing that we were doing everything and nothing was working. So it just seems so false to all of a sudden clam up and then just say, oh, it worked. Yeah. Who knows why? I mean, it just seemed that not fair to everybody that had sort of been invested to us. So,
yeah.
So my friends got to see the picture of donor 152. And cause we get like a little bit of information about them.
Yeah.
And we did that. And it was so funny because when I was growing eggs, we would be so excited if I could get like an 8-cell egg, and the egg we implanted, that's now my daughter, was 100 cells.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
did you meet this person, or was anonymous, or?
Absolutely anonymous.
Okay.
And to the point where she would be coming in, obviously she'd be doing IVF for harvesting while I was coming in to be getting ready, like to trick my body into being ready for a transfer. So they would time our appointments so that we were never there at the same time. I would have loved to meet her, but I think for protection services for both parties, I think legally we aren't allowed to meet. And I don't think she knows anything about me.
Okay.
Legally, Yeah. And there was a lot of legal,
right.
And signing paperwork and rules, just rules of that they enforce. It was great. And her eggs were great. And we implanted one. Oh, and I should say before that, we met with the high risk maternal fetal medicine department at, Northwestern, because we're getting like, well, what will pregnancy be like? Will it be sort of problematic because of all the surgeries I had in my 20s? And they looked at a lot of stuff, and they said, you can do this, but you cannot have twins.
Okay.
It will kill you. And that was disappointing too, because we were really hoping we could just do that. We wanted 2 kids, and we were like, well, we'll just get them at the same time and be done.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we got that advice. So we implanted one, it took, and now we have a beautiful 7-year-old girl.
Wow. So how old were you at the time when you did the donor egg?
Oh, gosh, let's see. 36.
Okay.
I had her when I was 37.
And how
started this when I was 30.
Wow. That is such a long journey. And how was the pregnancy?
Good. I mean, good. Everything was perfect, and there were no problems. I would say in the last 3 months, I started having severe pain because of all the scar tissue that had grown in my body from the surgeries and endometriosis. So things, as she was growing and stretching, scar tissue doesn't like to stretch. So that was problematic. And then my cervix dilated 1 centimeter, I think in week 18. And so then I had to go down to maternal fetal medicine every week to check to see if it was getting more dilated. Because if it was, I would have had to go on bed rest, but it never did. We just had to be really careful. Like I couldn't lift anything, but I was able to do my job and, live a life. And we binge watched a lot of shows, things like that. But she grew, and everything was good. And I would say the only other complication, and it's a cute story that we tell her now, because we're like, you were a troublemaker from the get-go.
Is she a troublemaker now too?
I mean, she's a sassy special. Like, I love her so much. She is not an introvert. We'll just say that.
Yes. I used to call my daughter a spirited child.
Yes, I was like, you are a firecracker, but in a great way.
Yeah.
But she, because of all the scar tissue, you're supposed to hear your baby kick 5 times a day or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there would be these times, a lot of times I'd have to eat ice cream and lay on my side because supposedly that helps. And that would usually get her to do it. But on 3 different occasions, we couldn't get the kicks. And when you couldn't get the kicks, you have to go down to the ER.
Mm-hmm.
They have to check you in and do all this stuff 3 times. And she was fine. But we weren't able to hear her kicking through the scar tissue because of whatever position she was in that day.
Yeah.
But, and we're like, we're sorry, false alarm. But they said, no, you have to come every time.
That must have been so scary, though. Every time you go.
3 times. By the 3rd time, I'm like,
please kick.
Yeah. But it was fine. And the delivery was really rough. Really, really rough because she wouldn't come out because of the scar tissue, and they had underestimated how bad that was. And so there are 13 doctors on the high risk team, and they had met about me and all decided that vaginal birth was very much preferable because they'd have to cut through so much scar tissue in a C-section that they'd be afraid they'd nick an organ.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that was the plan, but she would not come out. And she started to after 23 hours, she was getting into stress. So they had to do emergency C-section. And it was, of course, because it's like so Murphy's Law, it was Sunday night, at 9:30 when no one's there, And so, and the doctor, she was great, and I think she was the right one to have, but she was my least favorite of the 13 because her bedside manner is not very warm and comforting. And so she, of course, was her rounds when it was time. And so she called in doctors. She did everything right. She called in favors and got doctors to that hospital so that she had a team. But she was grim. And she told my parents, it's the second time my parents had to hear, we'll do our best to save her, because they heard that in my 20s for surgery. Oh. And then she said it again. She was like, we'll try to save her and the baby. And then I roll away. And I'm like, wait, what?
Wait, what? Just dropped the bomb on you. Yeah.
But it's fine. And we're fine.
Oh, so now you have this beautiful 7-year-old daughter.
Yep.
And what's your favorite part of being a mom?
Oh my gosh. I love her so much. I think this is kind of a convoluted answer, but I somehow think that all of the things I went through to get her, and knowing that she's my only one, I really am cognizant of each phase of her life.
I just got the full body chills.
Yeah, and not wanting to miss stuff. And so this is, my work schedule as crazy as I know you understand. I'm sure a lot of your listeners get. It's insane, but I'm a room mom for her class, which I have no business doing, and do not know why. 3 a.m, I'm trying to send out emails saying, "Who can bring raisins to the?
We're having a party for
to the holiday party. Who has a craft?
Right.
I don't want to. I want to be there.
You want to be present.
You're
more present. Yeah.
I think I'm more present than I would have been. I'm not saying I'm more present than moms are.
Right. No,
I just think if this had just been easy peasy for me, I would have just been trucking along. But now I'm really trying to be like, okay, I want her to have the perfect life. And I know that nobody has a perfect life, but I want to give her as much as I possibly can to have that.
Yeah.
I'm about to cry, but that's
me too. And she's so lucky to have you as her mama. You are a strong motherfucker. Excuse me. You are, Melissa. You have been through so much. I had no idea about all the stuff in your 20s. And thank you so much for sharing all of that. I'm sure a lot of people can relate, especially to the endo stuff. I know a lot of people have that.
Well, it sucks. And I just will tell your listeners, it sucks. And all the things you feel, I was a bitch probably for those last 3 years. I would not go to a baby shower. I will send you a great fucking gift, but I'm not going.
Right. Yeah. No, that's tough.
And you'd see pregnant people and I'd be like, I'm not, we're going to leave this restaurant. I was really kind of lost.
I went through that too. It's hard.
It was a lot, but my husband was amazing. And I know it can really tear people apart. And he was I think it really brought us together.
That's so good. Matt, good for you, Matt. I
Shout out
love the bears and it's all so good. So I'm so happy for you that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for taking the time to do this and for sharing your story and being so open. And next time you come to New York, please let me know and we'll do a proper catch up.
I would love that.
For sure.
Hopefully over wine. And I'd love to see Vince too. That'd be so fun.
Yeah, Vince went to high school with us too. So yeah, let's do that. Please let me know.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you guys so much for listening. I know a lot of you can really relate to all the endo stuff. So thanks again to Melissa for sharing all of that. And I will talk to you guys next time.